It hits you every day, doesn't it? This constant barrage of news, opinions, data. Feels like you need a team of analysts just to figure out what's actually worth paying attention to.
Oh, absolutely. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose. And that's where we come in, hopefully. Think of the deep dive as your personal filter, you know, sifting through the noise to bring you the truly significant insights, all tailored for you.
Exactly. And today, we've got a particularly rich source, the April 26th to May 2nd, 2025 edition of The Economist. Consider this your express route to understanding the key conversations and developments that were really on the global agenda last week.
Yeah, this issue gives us a fantastic bird's eye view of what's happening. We're going to unpack, well, everything from the big picture of global business and where the economy might be headed to the crucial first 100 days of Donald Trump's second term, the ongoing debate about whether the U.S. might face a recession,
Brilliant.
and those large-scale patterns of global migration, too.
Plus, we'll be looking at the political dynamics in Canada and Britain, the relentless progress of artificial intelligence, which is just huge right now.
Yeah.
And then a whole raft of updates across different sectors, everything from trade tensions and the evolving social media landscape
Yeah.
to what's happening in the Americas, the latest in tech and finance, shifts in immigration, defense developments, energy, car makers, even some interesting notes on science and culture.
So our aim is pretty simple, but hopefully powerful.
Yeah.
To give you a clear, concise understanding of the most important stories and I guess the underlying themes that The Economist highlighted. We've done the reading.
A heavy lifting.
Exactly. So you can grasp the essential information and how it all connects without wading through countless articles yourself. Okay, so let's dive into that big picture, the global economic outlook.
Right. So the IMF has revised its forecast downwards for global growth in 2025. What's the key takeaway there? What's the underlying worry?
Well, the central concern really boils down to a tricky combination.
Yeah.
You've got this persistent inflation that just isn't going away as quickly as hoped.
So sticky.
Very sticky. Then there's the continued cooling effect of high interest rates that central banks, put in place. And, of course, the unpredictable nature of global political events. Geopolitics that can always disrupt economic activity. It's like a global economy trying to navigate a bumpy road with the brakes slightly on,
That's a good analogy. And how are the major players expected to perform? The U.S., Europe, China? What's the outlook look like there?
Well, the U.S. economy, while still projected to grow, has also seen its forecast trimmed a bit.
Okay.
The real underperformers, according to this, are expected to be the Eurozone and Britain. China, on the other hand, is still anticipated to see pretty significant economic expansion. But what's particularly interesting is the description of stock markets as chaotic.
Chaotic? How so? What's driving that instability? Is it just volatility or something more?
I think the chaos part really highlights how incredibly sensitive investors are right now to any signals, any adjustments from central banks.
Ah, right. Fed watching taken to the extreme.
Exactly. Even a hint of a change in interest rate policy can trigger these big market reactions. It suggests a real nervousness, a real uncertainty about the path ahead.
And despite all the talk about potential trade barriers, tariffs, especially with Trump back in the picture, the U.S. dollar seems to be holding strong, right? That feels a bit counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it? The dollar's continued strength, even with those potential trade headwinds, suggests it's still seen as a relative safe haven in a somewhat turbulent global landscape.
So maybe fundamentals still outweigh the rhetoric sometimes.
Makes you wonder, yeah, the true impact of trade talk versus underlying economic factors.
Now, zooming in a bit, how is this broader economic climate actually hitting businesses on the ground? Any specific examples that stood out in the piece?
Yeah, the article gives some telling snapshots. You see Tesla's profits are down.
Right, I saw that. Competition heating up.
That's what they're attributing it to, yeah. A direct impact of market forces. But then on the flip side, you have United Health apparently bouncing back after that cyber incident.
Oh, right, showing some resilience.
Exactly. And then there's this mention of the gig economy in Dubai being highlighted, which just shows how these global trends manifest so differently across regions and labor models.
Yeah, it's never one size fits all, is it?
Not at all. It's a reminder the global economy isn't a single thing, but, a collection of interconnected parts.
And governments are stepping in too, right? New regulations popping up.
Yes, and two key examples mentioned are the EU's Digital Markets Act.
The DMA.
Right. And the UK's moves on online advertising regulations. The DMA is all about trying to foster more competition in tech, setting rules for the big players, making it easier for smaller companies, maybe improving interoperability.
Okay. And the UK.
Their focus on online ads seems to be about increasing transparency and accountability. These moves signal this growing global effort to grapple with the power and influence of digital platforms.
Makes sense. And a final, maybe unexpected business development mentioned.
Yeah, this was interesting. China appears to be accelerating the rollout of charging stations for electric vehicles, like much faster than many other regions.
Really. So building out that infrastructure quickly.
Very quickly, and that rapid development could give them a pretty significant edge in the global transition to EVs. It definitely raises the question of who's going to truly dominate that electric mobility landscape.
Definitely something to watch. Okay, let's shift gears now to a major political story. The first 100 days of Donald Trump's second term. These early periods often set the tone, don't they?
They really do. And the article frames these initial days as incredibly consequential, suggesting they'll lay the groundwork for the next, 361 days?
Yeah, the rest of the term. And it mentions his approval rating is around 50%. That's a pretty divided starting point.
Very divided. But what's the core focus of his approach in these first few months, according to the piece?
What are they highlighting?
Well, the analysis really homes in on his strategies and interactions with three key pillars: the bureaucracy, the media, and the judiciary.
Okay, the usual suspects, in a way.
In a way, yes. But the article highlights a clear pattern of him seeking to assert his authority and potentially reshape these institutions to align more closely with his agenda.
And how does that dynamic play out, between his very dedicated base and these more established institutions? There often seems to be a tension there.
Exactly. That tension is central. The article suggests Trump's actions often strongly resonate with his base, who might see these institutions as obstacles.
Right, the deep state narrative.
Precisely. But this approach can also generate significant pushback and naturally raise concerns about the stability and independence of those very institutions that are, fundamental to governance. It's a fascinating clash of populist will and institutional norms.
We're also seeing a familiar tool being deployed, it seems,
Right.
the executive order. What's the significance of that in these early days?
Yeah, the piece emphasizes his likely reliance on executive orders. It's a swift way to enact policies, get things moving quickly.
But potentially less durable.
That's the question, isn't it? While efficient, it brings up questions about the longevity and legal standing of these actions. They can be more easily challenged or, reversed by future administrations compared to legislation.
And what about the practical side? Running the government day to day, getting people in place, working with career officials. What does the article suggest about those challenges?
It touches on potential difficulties in staffing the administration with individuals who are completely aligned with Trump's vision.
Loyalty being key.
Seems so. And it also raises the possibility of friction with long-serving civil servants, the career officials who have deep institutional knowledge but maybe different perspectives. So it raises a key question about how effectively the executive branch will actually function, how cohesive its efforts will be.
Right. Okay, let's turn our attention now to the U.S. economy specifically. There's been so much talk back and forth about a potential recession. What's the economists' analysis of that risk? Is it still looming?
Well, the article acknowledges it's still very much an ongoing debate. It points to the key economic indicators that everyone's watching closely to assess the likelihood.
Which are? Inflation, obviously.
Inflation, of course, the direction of interest rates, will they stay high, start to come down? And crucially, how strong consumer spending remains. That's a big one.
And the Federal Reserve is right in the middle of all this, trying to manage those levers. What's their role in this whole recession watch?
Oh, the Fed is absolutely central, primarily through its efforts to control inflation by adjusting interest rates, obviously.
The soft landing attempt.
Exactly, trying to engineer that soft landing. The article also highlights the uncertainty around future appointments to the Fed's leadership, which could significantly influence monetary policy down the line. It's a really delicate balancing act they're performing, trying to cool things down without causing a sharp downturn.
It really is a tightrope walk, isn't it? Trying to bring inflation down without triggering a recession. Notoriously hard to do.
Very difficult.
What about the job market, though? It's been surprisingly resilient despite all the economic uncertainty, hasn't it?
That's a crucial point, yeah. The continued strength of the labor market has been a major factor, probably the major factor, helping to stave off those recessionary fears so far.
But can it last?
Well, the article cautions that this could shift, depending on how other economic pressures evolve. A strong job market provides a buffer, definitely, but it's not completely immune to broader economic headwinds.
And just a quick check-in on regional banks. They were a source of concern not too long ago. How are they looking now, according to this piece?
The piece suggests that those immediate acute concerns surrounding regional bank stability have somewhat subsided.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, but it's still presented as an area that requires, careful monitoring. The health of the financial system is obviously critical for overall economic stability. Can't take your eye off that ball.
Definitely not. Okay, let's switch gears pretty dramatically now and look at a really significant global trend: migration. The article titles this section Demography and Destiny. That sounds incredibly weighty.
It is weighty, and the article really underscores the increasing scale of people moving across international borders. It notes a substantial rise in the number of individuals living in a country other than their own. This isn't just a minor fluctuation. It's a significant global demographic shift with really far-reaching implications.
And what are the main forces driving this large-scale movement of people around the world? What's pushing and pulling them?
It's complex, as you'd expect. Significant economic inequalities between countries are a major factor, people seeking better opportunities.
Sure, economic drivers.
Then there's conflict and political instability in various parts of the world, forcing many to flee. And increasingly, we're seeing environmental changes and their impacts contributing to displacement and migration patterns, too.
Climate migration.
Exactly. It's becoming a bigger piece of the puzzle. So it's this confluence of economic, social, and environmental pressures.
So what are the consequences? For the countries people are leaving and for the countries they're arriving in, it must be a really mixed bag.
It is a complex picture, both potential benefits and significant challenges. For countries of origin, you might see a loss of skilled labor, a brain drain,
Right.
but also substantial financial remittances sent back by those working abroad, which can be a huge boost.
Okay. And for receiving countries.
They can gain valuable labor and skills, which is particularly important in countries with aging populations, like much of the developed world.
Filling labor shortages.
Precisely. However, they also face challenges, obviously. Integrating new populations, providing social services, managing potential social tensions.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
And we've certainly seen the political challenges that come with managing these flows. It's such a hot-button issue almost everywhere.
Absolutely. The article highlights the intense political debates around immigration policies, border management, integration. These issues often get highly politicized, impacting elections and social cohesion. It's a constant balancing act between humanitarian concerns, economic needs, and social integration.
Speaking of political landscapes, let's turn our attention up north to Canada. The article has a rather intriguing title: Canada Preaches to Pragmatics. What's the story unfolding there?
Yeah, that title's interesting. The piece focuses on the current political dynamics, particularly with Pierre Poilievre leading the Conservative Party. It notes the increasing pressure they seem to be putting on the governing Liberal Party under Trudeau.
So a potential shift in the political winds.
That's the sense you get. The article suggests the Conservatives are gaining ground by focusing really hard on economic issues, things they portray as the practical concerns of everyday Canadians: affordability, jobs, cost of living.
Bread and butter issues.
Exactly. And the Liberals are trying to counter this by also emphasizing their own economic and social policies. It looks like a real battle for the center ground, framed around who has the most pragmatic solutions.
Okay. And across the Atlantic, in Britain, the political scene also seems quite uncertain. The Economist calls it 2020 vision. What's the current snapshot there? Any clear?
Well, that title kind of captures a sense of ongoing uncertainty, doesn't it? Maybe a lack of a clear, unifying vision. The article analyzes the significant challenges facing both of Britain's major political parties, Labour and the Conservatives.
Still dealing with Brexit fallout, economic pressures.
All of that. Public opinion seems quite fluid, influenced by a whole range of interconnected issues. There just isn't a strong sense of long-term political stability right now, according to this analysis.
Okay, let's move on to a topic that's just dominating conversations globally.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence. The headline here is Expecting the Unexpected. That feels like a very accurate summary of the current moment with AI.
It really does. The article delves into the incredibly rapid, continuous advancements in AI. It really emphasizes the transformative potential across, well, virtually every sector. The sheer speed of development and the breadth of applications are quite remarkable.
Mind-boggling sometimes. But with this incredibly fast progress, what are the main areas of concern, the key challenges being raised in the article?
The piece highlights several critical areas needing careful thought. Ensuring the safety and reliability of AI systems is paramount. Making sure they work as intended, don't cause unintended harm.
Right, avoiding the sci-fi nightmare scenarios.
No, yeah, but also just practical failures. And then ethical considerations are huge. Bias in algorithms, privacy protection, the potential impact on jobs, the future of work.
Big societal questions.
Massive ones. It's a recognition that this amazing innovation needs to be guided by careful thought about societal implications. We can't just build it and figure out the consequences later.
And it's clear AI isn't just some futuristic concept anymore, is it? It's becoming increasingly integrated into our daily lives right now.
Absolutely. The article underscores that. It's weaving its way into our everyday tools, the services we use, how businesses operate. It's moving beyond the research labs and becoming a fundamental part of the economic landscape fast.
Okay, so now let's quickly touch on some of these sector-specific updates the economists covered, just to round things out. Starting with tariff wars, any signs of further escalation or changes there?
The article suggests that the potential for increased trade tensions, well, it remains a significant factor, especially with the possibility of more protectionist policies. This could have further disruptive effects on global supply chains, which are still recovering from previous shocks.
Still a risk factor then. What about the ever-evolving world of social media? Any notable shifts or ongoing debates highlighted?
The familiar debates around regulation and the spread of misinformation are still central, yeah.
Content moderation, platform responsibility.
All that. The article also points to this interesting idea of a changing understanding of what truth even means on these platforms and the challenges in establishing reliable metrics when things shift so quickly online.
That's tricky. Any significant developments mentioned in the Americas, beyond our discussion of Canada?
This particular issue focuses pretty heavily on Canada within the Americas. It doesn't really delve deeply into specific political or economic developments in, say, Latin America in this edition.
Got it. In the realm of technology, anything else beyond AI and that EV charging infrastructure in China that caught the economist's eye?
Beyond those key areas, AI and EVs, this issue doesn't highlight other specific major tech trends as standalone topics. I mean, technology is obviously a thread running through many discussions.
Sure, business, regulation.
Exactly. But no other big tech focus this week.
How about the financial markets? We touched on the volatility, the chaos. Any other significant finance news or trends noted?
It mainly continues to emphasize the market's sensitivity to central bank actions and inflation data. Investor sentiment remains really closely tied to expectations about future monetary policy. No other major, discrete financial events highlighted for this specific period.
Okay. Immigration, we discussed the big global trends. Any specific policy changes or updates on border control mentioned? Particularly concerning the pressures on the U.S. border.
The article does reiterate the ongoing significant pressures on the U.S. border related to immigration. It aligns with those broader global migration trends we discussed.
But no new policy details this week.
Not detailed in this issue, no. Just acknowledging the continuing pressure.
Right. Turning to defense, any notable shifts in military tech or geopolitical tensions highlighted? You mentioned China's drone market ambitions earlier.
Yeah, the growth of China's drone market and its potential implications for the defense sector does get a specific mention. Broader geopolitical tensions are acknowledged as, a contributing factor to global economic uncertainty.
A background hum of risk.
Exactly. But no other specific defense technology shifts are detailed here.
What about the energy sector? Anything interesting on renewables or oil markets?
Well, the transition to electric vehicles is discussed, obviously, in the context of China and car makers, but the article doesn't really delve into specific trends or analysis of the broader energy market's renewables, oil prices in this particular edition.
Okay. Anything noteworthy happening with car makers beyond Tesla's profit dip and that general EV push?
Beyond Tesla's specific situation and the overarching shift towards EVs, the article doesn't highlight significant news or trends for other specific car manufacturers this week.
How are companies adapting in terms of management and the workplace? That debate around remote work seems like it's never going away.
Still simmering, yeah. The article briefly touches on the continued discussions and adjustments companies are making regarding remote work policies. That balance between remote and in-office. It remains a significant area of ongoing adaptation for lots of organizations.
Free exchange is always insightful. Any particular economic principles or debates highlighted in that section this week?
In this issue, it feels like the free exchange themes are kind of woven throughout the various economic articles we've already touched on, rather than focusing on one single central principle or debate in isolation.
Gotcha. What about science and technology? Any updates beyond AI and drones? Our notes mentioned antimicrobial resistance and maybe some research into animal behavior.
Yeah, the article does include a mention of the persistent and very serious challenge posed by antimicrobial resistant superbugs to global public health.
A critical issue.
Absolutely. And it also briefly references research into animal cognition, specifically highlighting some studies involving dogs and their abilities. Always interesting.
Always popular. And finally, any cultural trends or analyses presented? Or perhaps the topic of the Economist Asks poll. Our notes mention the heart of art.
Yes, exactly. The Economist asks, poll in this issue centers on that intriguing question. What truly defines the essence or heart of art? It invites readers to share their perspectives on that timeless debate. But beyond that poll, the issue doesn't feature any other dedicated deep dives into specific cultural trends this week.
Wow. Okay. That was a really comprehensive look at a seriously packed issue of The Economist. It's fascinating just to see how all these different pieces of the puzzle fit together or sometimes clash to shape our world.
Absolutely. And what we've tried to provide you with today is, well, a distilled version of that complexity, highlighting the most significant developments and maybe some of the underlying currents that are shaping our future. It's a snapshot, really, of the key issues occupying global thinkers last week.
So as you process all of this, our listener, here's something to think about. Out of all these interconnected trends, whether it's the shifting sands of the global economy, the transformative power of AI, or the profound implications of global migration, which one or two do you think will have the most significant impact on your own life or the world around you in the coming months and years?
That's a great question.
It's a good exercise maybe to really think critically about this information and perhaps even delve deeper into the topics that really sparked your curiosity today.
Indeed. We definitely encourage you to explore these areas further if they interest you. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.